future people. It is the 18th of December, 2023, and we have some demos. Let's begin with Zach. Zach, take it away.
Okay. One demo is on behalf of Nick, and the other is mine. So, the first one is this is a demo. We are able to add components to the graph, which I think Nick already demoed. They're not showing very much here. Like we don't have the sockets on there, although the sockets are in. We're just not displaying them yet. But what we can do is I added a ECS service here. I have it selected, and look at this. We can see all the
Whoa.
attributes. We can't edit them yet. That's the next pass, but we're able to produce the data that the attribute editor uses to display and render a very complex tree of attributes. So that's pretty exciting.
That is
Whoa.
Check out
exciting.
an ECS cluster here. Yeah. So the ones go on the graph and attribute editor is coming in. So we're getting there. So that's on behalf of Nick. He wanted me to show that. And then
I
the other
love that
one
you even
is,
did it on like light mode.
well,
Right?
I'm in light mode because of I haven't made the visualizer support dark mode. Although that is also for Nick because he does love his light mode. And then the other thing is we're gonna see how this M1 Max can handle zoom and a giant cloud of visualization. Not too poorly. So this is a layout of the entire graph from a install with some components on it. It's not very useful here. You can zoom in and see that, like, oops, we have this, and it's doing like this force layout where every node has attractive and repulsive forces until it finds like a stable configuration. I'm going to get a hierarchical layout going at some point, but I don't have like edge direction on the data the front end has, so it doesn't. I don't know how to lay it out hierarchically yet. But we can narrow it down to, say, a Docker image. And we get something a little more useful, which is we can see the entire graph for the Docker image schema variant, and we can kind of we can trace things around, check out what is pointing to what. We can start at the root, and we can go category schema to the variant to all the things from it. It'll be much more useful when it's a hierarchical layout that shows it more as a tree. But yeah, this is a good sanity check about whether we are constructing the graph correctly, and it's kind of cool. So
It is kind of cool. That's awesome. Long live the new engine. Let's go, Theo.
The main thing I just wanted to show is that before we were doing a whole lot of unnecessary requests. So now we can see that we're not fetching get diagram more than once. We're not fetching the fix list more than once. We're not fetching the, what is it? I don't know. There was something else we were fetching more than once. And that's all great. But more what I wanted to show you is just how we do that. So I just want to show module store. So one thing that I changed here is that the module store, I believe before, I don't remember if it was module store or another one, but anyway, it was being scoped by the change set ID when it didn't need to be. So what that meant is as we change sets, the whole store is going to deactivate and then reactivate every time, which means we're going and fetching, like we call the activation hook, which, often these activation hooks go and call something. So it's just important to be thinking about, is this store actually scoped to a change set? And are we making requests that are about this change set, or is it about the workspace itself? So if it's only about the workspace, keep it scoped to the workspace, and then it won't actually be deactivating and reactivating as you switch around. And the other thing in general is to just be thinking about these unactivated hooks calling stuff, because it means as soon as any component uses the activation hook, or as it uses the store, it's going to call it and go load stuff. So in a lot of cases, it might be better to actually just wait until, the component that's using it is going to load, and then on mounted trigger to go, go fetch and actually watch the state and put a loader in and everything. That's all. It's more of just a PS.
So it's funny because that initial page load of we actually loaded the model on screen was 39 API requests, and now I just saw in Theo's it's down to 17. So that's actually like quite a large reduction in unnecessary API requests.
We also were like, when we were switching between change sets, we were doing extra requests on the way out, and so there were some more things there.
Sweet. Wendy, good work.
All right. I have a bunch of UI improvements, fixes, changes to demo here today. One of the first that's very exciting for me is you can now resize frames from any edge, from the top, not just the sides and the bottom, and fixed a couple bugs with frame resizing. The next one is qualifications used to pop out into this modal for no reason. Well, the reason was because of the old UI. Now they just pop out into an inline, which makes a lot more sense for this part of the UI. All confirmation dialogues can now be confirmed by pressing the enter key. Not going to do that for this one, but and they've had their buttons unified, and all scroll issues are fixed. So for example, if I want to delete a bunch of components all at once, it won't go off the top of the screen anymore. It will just display them in a little scrollable area. And that's true for all of those types of modal confirmations. This button has a hover state now, and hover states, there are a couple other places in the UI where we didn't have hover states for clickable buttons that now have them. And the drop down in the attributes panel has an actual little icon to show that it's a drop down now. You can see it there. Might make a change to it, but various empty states have been improved. Clarified copy. Let me see if we can find a couple examples. For example, in the code, it just says no code generated, since we don't know if it'll be yet or not. What else? The debug panel had a styling overhaul. Things are a little cleaner. I think that's everything. Probably I'm forgetting one or two things, but overall, just improvements across the entire UI.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, those are the sort of things that, like, if you don't do them, make the product feel janky and incomplete, right? Where
Right.
like, it's easy to look at them as like this is all small stuff, but it's like it's the small things that make things feel awesome, right? That's so good. Nice work. I too have a small thing demo that I will run. So, basically, before you might have seen in the screenshots we just had that every time you pull something in, it gets a like little SI dash whatever name. So now when you do that, you get EC2 instance 7527 instead of SI dash blah blah blah, right?
Nice.
Or, now you'll get log group. There you go, right? So that's the change. There's no more SI dash identifiers, at least not for components. Now it's the type of the component and a random number. And then Paul.
Okay, so I'm actually demoing some work that Paulo did last week, and this is the ability to nest frames, and not just to be able to nest frames, but to be able to actually pass data between those nested frames. So I have a AWS credential right here. This is the new credential work that we can see, and I'm going to throw a region in here, and let's make this region US East 2. Let's throw another region inside this. And let's make this EU West 1. Okay, I'm going to create a key pair. And by default, the key pair will now pick up both the US East 2 region and the AWS credential. So we can see that. So it's actually passed it across a different piece of it. But if you watch this credential field right here, where it's the region field where it's currently set to US East 2. So we've made it now that you can drag components into frames at the same level, even when you're within a frame. And if we drag this into US East 1, or US West 1, you're actually going to detach the US East 2 socket and reconnect it to the EUS 1 socket. If we do that, we'll actually see it as updated there. So we're now building a key pair that is in a more specific region than the outside region. So this is like kind of the basis of our multi-configuration frames, and really gives us the ability that we can actually start to segment the graph and be able to add more specific details in areas where we actually need to. We can't pull this out because there is no detachment in frames yet. But you know, this is a huge step. And even if I go and add another region in here, I don't know how to look because frames being like super big. But let's like try it and let's see. Let's actually make it like North Virginia. And we should actually be able to also bring it in, and it's US East 1. So we're what, 1, 2, 3, 4 frames down. So nested frames is going to give us the ability now to start segmenting the graph really nicely, which is a huge enhancement to be able to pass that data between the frames.
Yeah, and I think there's something special about how, like, when you think about the way you override that stuff, you know, if you think about it from like the point of view of like Terraform or Pulumi, you're essentially doing what would happen with nested attribute overrides, you know, where you're like, oh, here's the baseline attribute, but then we're gonna fill in the attribute in this other place, and like, I think turning that stuff into as a first pass, turning it into nested frames, kind of delightful, right? Next up is Paolo. Paolo.
Hey folks, I'm gonna demo something that is still in flight, but it should be merged soon. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so basically I have some deeply nested frames, just like Paul was showing y'all, and we can see that we have like the region correctly, the credential, everything is being propagated, and eventually when the VPC gets created, it's gonna propagate the ID too. But what I'm doing here is, what if I want to change something slightly, or like this is for production, I want to make staging, let me clone it, copy 7 components, and let's drop it here. It's gonna take a little bit, it's not optimized, so it's a bit slow, but it should be copying every single frame or component and the attribute for the components. Let's see if this works. We need some reactivity things, but let's hope the demo gods are with us. But the idea is that even if you can't detach frames, for example, you can clone things and customize as needed. So you get some freedom there. But I don't know if it's gonna work. Like it was taking 20 seconds or something for like, because this is deeply complex because everything's connected to everything.
Yeah, and then the Zoom tax is going to
You're
push you
paying
into
Zoom.
the 40s.
100%, yeah. And I forgot
So we
to
have
open
to-
the network
we have
tab
to
to see
vandal
that. Yeah, I'm gonna
So-
work on like committing gradually, so each component like gets committed
Yeah.
separately, so we don't have to wait for everything. But yeah,
Yeah.
but you can trust that this works, at least like the concept. But let's see.
Yeah, let's see
It's
if it comes
loading
up. I mean,
something.
when you think about starting to. So like one of the things we think is cool in about like how this can work in the end is that like there it goes.
Yay. For example, this node, which is the subnet, as soon as it loads, it should be getting everything expected from the other subnet. But you were saying something, Adam? Okay, so region, credential. It's there is a bug that Jacob found with me, but like I'm gonna fix it.
Yeah, if you can imagine the same functionality, but more performant, the thing that you get out of it is the ability to basically say, yeah, I have an application or I have a deployment that works the way I want it to. Now I want another one that's in some measure slightly different, but mostly the same. And like getting to that place is now super fast, right? Like it's so much more straightforward to just be like, well, yeah, let's cut and paste it. There you go.
Oh yeah.
Cut and paste. Ta-da. Yeah, that's going to be so rad.
Yep. It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Alrighty then.
And spoilers, we eventually will use Ctrl-C and Ctrl-V, but like it's something that we are developing, but don't tell anyone.
Yeah, we'll get you there. And you know, yeah, and you know, it's all downhill in performance land. Like most of it's a copy. We can figure out ways to optimize that for sure. All right. Any other demos? Going once, going twice. All right, future people. This is the last time you'll see me for the winter. So if I don't see you around, I'll see you in 2024. All right, bye.